Okay, hey guys, this is Mrs. Talk Talk here, and I just wanted to quickly go over some of the cell parts. I had you take notes out of the book or another resource to get some information and start writing some things down, but now you're going to listen to me go through and give you my quick little explanation. So we already talked about Robert Hooke and his discovery of the cell, looking at cork, named the cells. We talked about Leeuwenhoek, saw the first living cells. We talked about Schleiden, botanist, plants made of cells, swan, animals made of cells. We talked about Virchow, all cells come from cells. We looked at the cell theory that says that the cells are the basic unit of life. All living things are made of cells, and all cells come from pre-existing cells. We covered that in class. We looked at cell types, prokaryotes, before a nucleus, so no nucleus, bacteria only, very, very small, and eukaryotic cell types. This is your typical cell. All other cells in life are going to be eukaryotic, true nucleus, and other membrane-bound organelles, and quite a bit larger. Now we want to go through parts of the cell. I'm going to go back just real quick to this slide here. And what I want to tell you first is that here are the parts of the cell that I want to go through. You can see here that cells have a nucleus. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And they have a cell membrane. And everything between the nucleus and the cell membrane, everything here, everything, including all these little organelles, everything is called cytoplasm. Now, cytoplasm has a liquid portion called the cytosol, and then it has solid pieces in it. And those solid pieces that are showing up here are the organelles. And so I want to go through and I want to talk quickly about the cell membrane, the nucleus, and the organelles, and also plant cells and how plant cells are different. So we'll start here with the cell membrane, and the cell membrane is found in all cells. All cells have a cell membrane. Bacteria have a cell membrane. Fungus, protists, plants, animals, all cells have cell membranes. Controls what enters and leaves the cell, and they're also made up of phospholipids. You can see here's a picture of the cell membrane, mostly phospholipids. Here's that lipids. We'll come back and talk about the cell membrane later, but this is what you need to know right now. Cells also have a nucleus. This is where DNA is stored. All DNA is wrapped up inside the nucleus of a eukaryotic cell, which is what we're talking about. And all the cells in your whole body have the exact copy of the same DNA all inside the nucleuses of your cells. That's why if you're at a crime and you leave some evidence behind, any biological fluids that you were to leave behind, cells, all your DNA is there. Okay. The nucleus has a membrane around it, also a phospholipid bilayer, and the nucleus membrane is called the nuclear envelope. And you'll notice it has pores in it. It has little holes in it, and that's going to have a purpose and a function that we'll talk about later. There's also inside here a little nucleus that's called the nucleolus, which makes ribosomes. Here's just a picture. Here's a picture of a nucleus and a nucleolus. And next part, so we'll talk about the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum is often abbreviated as the ER. And what this does is it helps move materials inside the cell. Think about the cell. It's like got all that cytoplasm. It's got the cytosol. It's got the organelles. If there's proteins that are being made or enzymes that need to be, moved, it's hard. It's like probably thinking about moving through syrup. Okay, and that's hard. So to make it easier for materials to move inside the cell, the molecules that need to move go through the endoplasmic reticulum. And there are some other functions of the endoplasmic reticulum, but for now I'll just have you understand that it helps move materials inside the cell. One way one thing that helped me learn this is somebody said, if you injured yourself and you had to go to the ER, say you cut yourself and you needed stitches and you needed to go to the ER, you would take the highway to get there. The ER is the emergency room, of course, and that's where you'd go to get stitches, but you would take the highway to get there. because that would be the fastest way to get there. You wouldn't take a bunch of back roads and whatever. You'd want to get there as quick as you can, so you would take the highway. So that kind of helps me remember things. So I think about the ER as the highway of the cell, how molecules can get through faster. There are two types. There's a rough endoplasmic reticulum with ribosomes. So the rough ER has ribosomes, and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum does not. Here's a picture of that. You can see here the two types of ER. This one on top is smooth, no ribosomes. And this one here has ribosomes attached all over the place, and it looks kind of gritty. And the other thing you can see in this picture is that it is like a series of tunnels. And so again, as I'm telling you that molecules want to go through the ER because it's like a highway in the cell, you can see that in this picture. It's a network. It's a bunch of tubes and tunnels, and so molecules can get through there a whole lot easier than just kind of trying to float along in the cytosol of the cytoplasm. Okay. Another picture here, microscope picture of that. Here's a bunch of the ER. You can see all the ribosomes are little black dots. So that's the rough ER. Okay. Next is the Golgi apparatus, also known as the Golgi complex or the Golgi body. If you see Golgi, it's all the same thing after that. It just depends on what textbook you're looking at or who's talking to you. They all mean the same thing. But what the Golgi does is it packages proteins for export. We just got done talking about macromolecules. One of the macromolecules was proteins. Proteins are super important. Your cells are busy producing the proteins that your body needs. It's producing all kinds of things, enzymes, hair, antibodies for your immune system. I mean, just all kinds of things. Your cells are making those proteins so that you can live and that you can have shape and colors and all the things that make you you. So your cells are constantly making proteins. And some of those proteins are going to be exported out of your cells, and they're going to travel to other places in your body. Well, in order to get out of the cell, those proteins have to be gift wrapped. They have to be put in a package. They can't just leave. They have to be packaged up. And so the Golgi is like a gift. It's packaged up proteins. It's going to package up the proteins. So protein molecules, in order to get out, will have to go through this. This is a lipid-based molecule, and it will go through this lipid-based molecule, and it'll be wrapped up and gift boxed up before it can leave the cell. So Golgi apparatus is for packaging. So think of like a gift wrapped box. That's what's happening there. Okay, lysosomes. Lysosomes are for digesting material brought into the cell. This word lyse, remember hydrolysis, lysis means to break. And here it is, lysosomes. These are little bodies that break things down. That's literally how this word translates. Lyse means to break, soma means body. So these are little bodies that break things down. And that's what they are. They're little spherical organelles that contain enzymes that break things down, and sometimes some acids that will also additionally help break things down. And well, why would we want this in the cells? Well, a lot of times like protozoa will use lysosomes to help break down the food that they take in because they don't have a stomach. They're just single-celled organisms, so they have to have a way to digest materials, so the lysosomes will do that. The lysosomes will also be found in white blood cells that fight infection in your body and that go and destroy bacteria or viruses that are invading your body. So lysosomes have the ability to break those things down as well. So lysosomes are there to break things down. And so I have this like bottle of maybe like Lysol or something, kind of like cell cleanup. So I think lysosomes, Lysol just helps me think of like getting rid of unwanted bacteria or something like that. So that's lysosomes. All right, next we have the ribosomes. Ribosomes, here's a kind of a blown up picture, but ribosomes are where the proteins are put together. I just said that ribosomes are for protein synthesis, where protein synthesis takes place. Your cells are constantly making proteins. That's what they do. They're little factories that make proteins. And you can see the ribosomes here. It says ribosome. It says a ribosome. And these little green circles are amino acids. And the amino acids are being joined together here to make a growing polypeptide chain. And so that should make some sense to you. But the proteins are assembled here at the ribosome. And so that's important. We'll go into this. You'll understand this picture before you leave this course in detail. But for now, you just need to know that ribosomes make protein, where the proteins are made. Okay, and then we have vacuoles. Vacuoles are for storage of water and salts and minerals and foods. So vacuoles, when I hear vacuole, I think of vacuum, like a vacuum cleaner that sucks things up. And so here is a protozoa like we saw earlier, and it has food vacuoles right here and right here. And those food vacuoles are storing, actually sucking up food that's coming in from this oral groove. This thing is taking in food here, and it's storing and sucking up and storing that food. So that's like a good example of a food vacuole. And then go back to lysosomes, and the lysosomes will come and break that food vacuole down and then help with the enzymes of breaking down that food. And so that's kind of how that works. And we'll come back to this when we talk about plants also. Mitochondria. I heard this in the classroom today. Mighty mitochondria. My teacher said mighty mitochondria. I say the same thing. Mighty mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. You need to know the mitochondria. This is where cellular respiration takes place and energy is made. And you might think, yeah, but my food is for energy. That's where my energy comes from, is my food. And you're right, it does, but it has to be converted. So that food that you eat gets converted here at the mitochondria into a cellular energy called ATP. And we'll learn about this later, but for right now you need to think about the mitochondria, the mighty mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, as your batteries, because that's what they are. They're producing energy for you. And here's a picture of that. And then I want to also mention animal cells have what's called a cytoskeleton. And the cytoskeleton is for structure and support inside of an animal cell. Animal cells do not have cell walls, which is for structure and support, but they do have protein filaments called actin filaments and microtubules. And these are protein filaments that serve kind of like a skeleton, that give the support needed for animal cells to have some shape and some structure. Lastly, I just want to mention that cells can move, and not all cells can move, but some of them do move, and there are some structures that help them move. And so one's called cilia, and cilia is found on this picture here. These are short little hairs, and those short little hairs will move that around. This is what Leeuwenhoek saw in the drop of rainwater that he looked at. He saw these little protozoa swimming around, and that's why he called them animalcules. But they were swimming around because of their cilia. But there's also flagella over here that some protozoa have, but also bacteria. Some bacteria have flagellum, and it helps them to move. Now I remember the difference between these two because flagella is a longer word, and this is a longer structure. And cilia is a shorter word, and these are shorter structures. That's how I remember the difference. But they both help cells move. Now let's just talk a little bit about plants. Plant cells have some unique features. One is that they have plastids. The first one that comes to mind right here that I'm looking at is chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are structures for photosynthesis. And they're green because they contain a green pigment called chlorophyll. But there's some other plastids out there also that are colorful. That's what you're seeing right now with the changing of the leaves. The chlorophyll actually gets sucked into the trunk of the tree. And what's left over in the leaves that you're seeing right now are other pigments. They're called accessory pigments that are found inside of other plastids. And those pigments can be red and green and yellow and purple and orange. And so we see those pigments right now inside of other plastids called chromoplasts. Leucoplasts are white, and they're for storing starch. And so I hope you're thinking of maybe a potato, because potatoes are full of leucoplasts. That's what you're eating. It gives it that texture It's that white starch, basically, is what you're seeing, are all inside of these little grains called leucoplasts. And so plants have plastids, which are involved in the manufacture of food or the storage of food. Chloroplasts, same thing. Okay, let's also talk about the cell wall. And cell walls are found in plant cells. Now this goes around the outside of the cell membrane, different from the cell membrane because it's thicker and rigid. And it gives the plant support and helps the plant grow up tall. That's what Robert Hooke saw when he was looking at cork. He saw cell walls, and that was it, because they were left over. They last a long time. They're made of cellulose, which is a polysaccharide, but they're very long-lasting. You also can find cell walls in fungi and even in bacteria cells. They also have cell walls, just not in animal cells. Well, I flipped that last slide, but that last slide was a big vacuole. So I also would like you to know that, I don't know if I can back that up. Let's see. Let's see here. I messed something up. I don't think it'll let me go back. Oh, it did. Let me go back. Okay, cool. So last slide here, large vacuoles. Plant cells have big lakes on the inside of them. And this big giant lake here is a vacuole, and it's full of water. So as I said earlier, vacuoles, think vacuum, can suck up stuff. Well, this is a big vacuole that actually is holding a lot of water. And again, plant cells need a lot of water. They don't have bones, so they need some sort of pressure to keep them rigid and growing up tall. And that's going to be the water that they take in. They're going to have so much water that a lot of these organelles, including the nucleus, is going to get pushed up against the cell walls of the plant. And so mostly what you see inside of a plant cell is a lot of water most of the time, especially if it's an aquatic plant. But yeah, that's pretty much it regarding cells. So I hope that was helpful. And if you have questions, I will be glad to answer them. You can send me messages, emails, or talk to me in class. I hope that was helpful. Thanks.